Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Questions for Lawyers. I'm your host, Jeff Edelman, and today I have two members of the Palm Beach County Justice Association, Jason McIntosh and Nelson Baez from Lytle Ryder. And the reason we are presenting this show today is just a short while ago, these two gentlemen obtained a plaintiff's personal injury verdict in Palm Beach County, Florida. And there haven't been many in-person civil jury trials of late. So they were kind enough to come on with me and talk to other trial lawyers about their experience dealing with a civil jury trial during this COVID-19 pandemic. Jason, Nelson, first, Jason, very good to see you again. And
see you as well, Jeff.
You know, last time we were setting a course record at the PGA golf course for the highest score.
The divots that we caused.
Yes, I think we got the high score in that tournament. So I don't think
treated that like a basketball game, run up the score.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to do. And Nelson, again, it's always good to see you as well. You were part of that. You were part of that team effort to run up the score. So good seeing you again. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you about, Jason, is just what was it like after such a long absence to walk into a courtroom again and get ready to try a case in these times?
It's funny you asked, Jeff, because I feel like Nelson and I were kind of chatting about that on the way the entire time through trial. It's like, it's in my DNA being a trial attorney. Before I was a trial attorney on the civil side, I was a prosecutor. So I'm used to the courtrooms and I'm comfortable there. But the comfort is also cushioned by butterflies, nervousness, the same thing that we normally get, that feeling in our gut when the judge is calling a jury panel up, when it's about to go, and the waiting game of, is it going to go? Is it not going to go? The first, the weeks before, and, we were number 8 on Thursday. We ended up being number 1 by Friday afternoon, and so we had no idea if we were going to go initially. So those kind of feelings came back, and, it's been far too long. It's been almost a year and a half since I've been in trial. And obviously COVID shut down trial for over, I think it's 10 months they were shut down. So, as soon as we got back in there, those feelings started coming back, but also the comfort and the familiarity of being in the 4 walls of the courtroom and kind of moving about the courtroom. Once you get past all the modifications they made, the plexiglass in front of the judge, everybody's wearing a mask, there's markers for social distancing. Certain parts of the benches are marked off where people can't sit, the jurors can't sit. But apart from that, it was very familiar. I'd say that.
Nelson, similar question, your experience going back into the courtroom, but adding into it, seeing the plexiglass and all that. Tell me what that was like for you.
It was exciting once we found out on Friday that we were definitely going, knowing that we could. We'd been preparing all week knowing it was a possibility, but knowing that we over the weekend could really focus on being geared up. And in my 11-year career, 2020 was the first year I didn't try a case. So it was, my last trial was in December of 2019. So it was really exciting to know that we were getting back in there. And there was that excitement of being one of the first ones. I know that a couple of other cases have gone to trial, but still being one of the first. But kind of like Jason said, once you got in there, you kind of forget you're wearing a mask, you see through the plexiglass, and you just get back into trial mode. And it felt good. And just like Jason said, all of the nervousness, all of the excitement, all of the, the objections, all of that just like starts coming right back to you, just as if you had, just back like when Jason and I were prosecutors trying all those DUI cases. So it was really nice to be back in the courtroom. It was a good feeling.
Nelson, let me ask you this, because when the case started out, you actually were not in the courtroom that you tried the case, they ended up trying the case in. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so for the voir dire, they called up about 30 people on our panel, and we asked there to be as big of a panel as we could, not knowing how many people would be stricken for cause. and the judge, they're picking the juries in the ceremonial courtrooms. So the judge had us set up in the ceremonial courtroom. We started the trial on Tuesday. We did jury selection in the morning. We did closings in the afternoon, or I'm sorry, openings in the afternoon. So, and then our first two witnesses in the ceremonial courtroom on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we moved down to Judge Kelly's courtroom. Judge Kasternakis presided over our case, but he has one of the smaller courtrooms. So we were in Judge Kelly's courtroom that has one of the larger courtrooms on the 9th floor. So, I mean, it wasn't too big of a change for us. You know, a courtroom's a courtroom once you start talking. But it was just, you know, getting our witnesses scheduled because it was kind of like a fluid situation as to which room we were going to be in. But my understanding is that the judges are picking juries in the ceremonial courtroom to adhere to all the social distancing. So they're rotating through. I know that Judge Karakuzo had come in on a break and was talking to Judge Kasternakis about planning to start picking a criminal jury on Thursday. So she was going to be using that same ceremonial courtroom.
Jason, you actually did the voir dire for this trial. Tell me about your experiences questioning the jury and the sentiment about serving as a juror in the time of a pandemic.
Well, I first and foremost, Jeff, let me give tremendous kudos to court personnel, court admin, Chief Judge Krista Marks, Judge Kasternakis, and all the court deputies over there at the courthouse. They did a tremendous and stellar job of handling the entire process and basically making it as familiar and comfortable and safe as possible. And as far as COVID goes, Judge Kasternakis got on a case management call with Nelson, myself, and the opposing counsel the evening or the day before trial to kind of let us know and go over some parameters. And he said that they actually cover a lot of the COVID issues downstairs in the main jury room when they bring in the big panels or the entire jury pool. And then the jurors that are selected are normally they have been vetted already regarding comfort regarding COVID. So the people that obviously come up to us are pretty serious. So, that was one thing that was kind of an easy hurdle to overcome. The judge, among his questions, is the common question of, does anybody have any hardships? Will this cause any hardships to serve? And a few people raised their hand to mention that they didn't feel comfortable being in a mask for multiple days in the courthouse. And then a couple people raised their hands to say the opposite. They don't feel comfortable around other people who aren't necessarily adhering to protocol with the masks. And those people were basically dismissed and allowed to go, once they kind of made it clear that they're not going to be able to focus on the trial because they're worried about the mask either causing them anxiety, breathing issues, whatever it may be. But beyond that, everybody else, COVID was kind of an afterthought. Nobody even really mentioned it. We got right into the issues, the main issues that you want to talk about in jury selection, the attitudes, the beliefs of jurors, the biases, to kind of get to the nitty gritty and the law, obviously, if they can follow the law.
Sure. Well, Jason, let me ask you this, because you're questioning the jurors. They're all wearing masks. Okay. That's what happened during the jury selection, right?
Yes, all the jurors wore masks. The Judge Kasternakis did give the lawyers and the witnesses the opportunity or the options to take off their mask once they were, at the podium or in the witness box, because they're very removed from everybody else. At that point, the witness boxes had plexiglass and the podiums were far from everyone else. So they allowed us to take our mask off for, inflections and so people can hear us and understand us.
Well, I think that a lot of people's concern is not being able to read the expressions on the jurors' faces during voir dire and say during the trial. Did you find that to be a concern of yours?
Honestly, it was an afterthought of mine because the jurors, it might be a unique panel that we had, but the jurors were pretty willing to answer the questions that I had for them. And we had, because of technology and the fact that this trial was a hybrid Zoom trial, we had to wait for the jurors to get microphones from the deputies so that they could speak to respond to our questions. So you could clearly hear them when they responded. So, I mean, that allowed us to have a little bit more interaction, because sometimes you don't always hear jurors in the back. And, I like to work my way through the rows and making sure that I call on everybody to find out what they know, which, to sometimes the detriment is a detriment to the time that you have, but it still worked out, and it really didn't end up being a problem. And during trial, the jurors had notepads and they seemed like they were focused and paying attention. You can still see those same things. You might not be able to see their mouth, but honestly, I mean, seeing a juror's mouth during trial doesn't really do anything. It's more so what their eyes are doing and what what their body language is. And it seemed like they were all pretty attentive.
When you said it's a hybrid Zoom trial, what did you mean by that?
From start to finish, the trial had a Zoom link that allowed not only spectators to participate and watch the trial all throughout Palm Beach County, and I guess the world, if they really logged on and they got the password, but it also allowed, in the beginning, we actually had a kind of a hiccup with the court reporter situation, where our court reporter didn't show up live, and she actually took jury selection. And it might have just been jury selection. I think she showed up for opening, if I recall, but she took jury selection by Zoom. It did cause some problems because she wasn't able to hear like the bench conferences with the judge, because when he puts on the white noise, the people on the Zoom can't hear the white noise. But she was recording the jurors' commentary and the questions from the lawyers by Zoom. And so we had to wait for microphones to get to the jurors so that they could hear, so that the court reporter can hear on the Zoom. That caused obviously some delays on our time, but that's one of the technological kind of advancements that we've made in this last year. Also during the trial, our witnesses were live, but the witnesses for defense actually were called via Zoom, including the CME doctor and 2 of their fact witnesses. So the cross-examination and direct examination was going on just like our conversation right now.
That's incredible. Nelson, given the fact that the trial was live streamed, and you were able, anybody could have watched this trial. Explain what that was like, because normally somebody would have to show up to the courtroom and, tell you, oh, good job, whatever. But here, everybody could watch.
Yeah. It was weird to have just an empty courtroom. Usually there's somebody in the courtroom watching. But it was a huge advantage that Jason and I used throughout the trial to have our office back in their, in the comfort of their offices watching. And, my assistants and paralegals watching everything, and they're able to give us feedback as to how witnesses did, things that they heard from witnesses that they felt were important and that then we could incorporate into our closing arguments. And then the same thing from the other attorneys in our office. Obviously they have different time constraints, so they can't watch a full trial, but when they are able to watch something, they're able to pick up on things that, when you're actually trying the case in the heat of the moment, you either may miss or you may not realize the significance of that to somebody who's hearing the case for the first time. So it was a really unique experience in that sense, that you have a lot of people back at your office actually watching, and they can give you a perspective that's going to be closer to what the jury's hearing, as opposed to what Jason and I, who know the case inside and out, are hearing from the witness stand.
I can't imagine how invaluable that must have been, to be able to get real-time feedback from so many different sources on both sides of the, defense and plaintiff.
Yeah. It was also unique that, like Jason said, anybody can watch it. So my wife, for the first time ever, got to watch me do a closing argument. After the trial, just getting text messages from friends and former colleagues saying, oh, I got to watch a little bit of this. So it's a unique experience, but it's certainly a tool that as they keep the Zoom links open for trials going forward, that we as attorneys definitely need to utilize. Normally, if you want to have a consultant, or if you want to have somebody in there giving you feedback, they can't just send you an email right away, or they can't just, hand you a piece of paper in the middle of trial. Now you do have those opportunities. And it's basically, there is no limit as to how many people you can have watching you and giving you feedback. So it's a really unique, I guess, consequence of the whole COVID process.
Nelson, you and I briefly talked about this, and I think it's important to bring up, because this was a huge concern of mine with opening up civil jury trials. The nation is extremely polarized right now. There are people who, I mean, masks are a political issue, it seems. Everything's a political issue. What did you observe with the jury in terms of, did you see a difference from, say, the jury in December 2019 to the one that you saw this month, February 2021, in terms of just being willing to talk and give their opinions?
I would say the one thing that jumped out to me is that all of the jurors that were there, they really wanted to be there for the right reason. In this COVID age, it was so easy to get off of jury service. Not only did they give you opportunities before you ever walked up to the courtroom, but even during the COVID questioning, Judge Kasternakis, if you gave a COVID explanation to why you couldn't be there, it was pretty much you were able to go. So that was very obvious. So the people that did stay that were not cause challenges, they were all people that throughout Jason's questioning made it clear that they wanted to be there because they felt it was their civic duty and their civic responsibility. So going into the trial, we had a lot of trepidation that the people that would be showing up to a trial and sitting in a courtroom with strangers in a closed room would be the people that have the political beliefs that you don't have to wear a mask or that the virus doesn't exist. And that mindset tends to be not good for our type of cases. But we actually found the opposite of that. Now, as Jason said, we could have just been lucky with the jury panel. And certainly when you get a good result like we did, you tend to think that everything worked out. And I recognize that that's not going to be the case for everybody that goes to trial. But it was very clear that everybody who was on that jury panel, that they wanted to be there for the right reasons, because they thought that it was their civic duty to give back. The other thing that I found that I think was very helpful for us that this new political environment has shown is that people are no longer afraid to share their opinions, no matter how how unpleasant or how unpolitically correct those opinions can be. We had one gentleman, younger gentleman, who came in wearing a Confederate flag T-shirt on our jury panel. Now, I'm Hispanic, Jason's Black, and our client's Haitian. So, we didn't think that that was going to be an ideal juror for us. But that guy was not shy with sharing his opinions. And in response to some of Jason's questionings about are there too many lawsuits in the state, he mentioned that there's too many complainers. We just have too many snowflakes out there. And, that's obviously a trigger word. But when he says the snowflakes, that got, Jason got somebody else to comment and say, oh, yeah, that's right. I think that there's too many snowflakes. So, you walk into the courtroom with this trepidation that you're going to have these closeted people that are out to sink your case. But the one thing that we at least saw is that those people now in this political environment are so eager to share their values and their views that you're going to be able to identify them pretty easily. And at the end of it, we were actually wondering, where was this guy on January the 6th?
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, that's the landscape we're dealing with right now. Jason, did you have a similar thoughts to Nelson on that issue?
Absolutely. Nelson put it perfectly. The one thing, I've learned from going to voir dire seminars and hearing from the great trial lawyers that have done voir dire is you got to get, obviously any jury selection is about getting the jury talking. You're not going to change anybody's mind, and you're probably not going to find jurors that love you, but you really need to find the jurors that hate you or hate your client, and get them off the jury. And once you get them talking, you got to find out who else agrees with the really, really loud ones. And the polarization of our country has, the politics and everything that has happened the last couple of years has really emboldened people to speak up, like Nelson has said. So I didn't find it to be problematic. Now the judges don't like it so much when you get the people talking that way. So you got to kind of dance delicately when you're doing it, because I know I was I might have been reprimanded a couple times for some of the questions I was asking. But I mean, at the end of the day, we got a job to do, and I wanted to stick to it. And, despite the reprimanding or whatever, my job is to find out, if these people are going to give my guy a fair shot, because at the end of the day, that's all we want. If we're not going to get a fair shot, the chances are we're not going to win. So, don't be shy about asking those questions. And I told the people, I said, look, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to judge you. I just need to know how you feel. And, it's a conversation. And I think a lot of the people that we're not looking for as our ideal jurors, and they, when we let them know that, look, this is the non-political correct zone. I want you to speak your feelings. I think a lot of those people kind of feel more comfortable talking that way. And that's exactly what we want.
It's discouraging to hear people talking like that, but it's encouraging because that those people are not going to be able to sit on a jury. And that was a real concern for me. So I was actually really happy to hear Nelson and you say that. So that was very encouraging for me.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Jason. You've gone through it. You know about the backlog there is in every county and, every state in the union. Can this be done all throughout the courthouse, or do you think that it may behoove some courts to maybe do the voir dire virtually and then bring the people into the courthouse to get things cranking on the civil jury side? Because the backlog is tremendous right now.
I mean, we were already backlogged before COVID, right? We know that
Right.
as plaintiff lawyers, we couldn't get to trial when we wanted to. So, the backlog is only doubling down, tripling down, or moving exponentially. But I don't know. It's similar to, the way our whole country is right now. I don't know if this system is ideal for every single county, because every single county has different COVID numbers and different population densities and amount of cases and everything. Cases in court and cases of COVID. But, what the formula works for sure, but it's, the fact that we were the only show in town last week, literally, that's not going to do much to, to stop the dam of cases that has, welled up essentially all this time, that's built up. So I think it's a process that works, and there's certain things that I think, that they can work on to make it smoother, and maybe even start adding additional cases, but it can't get back to normal until obviously our cases of COVID cases go down, and then we can start actually trying real cases in numbers, because I think the social distancing element of the jury and the jury pool downstairs is really what's most crucial. And if they can't bring in the same amount of jurors that they used to, they're never going to be able to try the same amount of cases, because we have to have those panels, and I understand the hesitance and the how much care they're putting into the process of making sure that they carefully pick which cases go to trial.
Sure.
Jeff, I would just add, to add on to that, going through these trials, I know that Tiffany Faddis had a trial go in November. We had our trial go in February, and they're calling up trials. Like Jason said, we were very far down the list at the beginning of the month, as after calendar call, when we were going to get called up. And as all of these cases start getting called up, we're in touch with the plaintiffs' attorneys ahead of us. Cases are settling. They're finally getting offers. The backlog of cases that actually need to go to trial is always going to be there. But we as plaintiff attorneys have a very unique opportunity. Our trial cases, the ones that we know we want to push to trial, if we have those ready, the judge is going to find trial time for us. And the defense attorneys, they're going to have to either be ready to go to trial, or they're going to have to pay us, because we can get results, during this COVID time. We can find the right jurors, we can get results. Jason and I were fortunate enough to be able to do that last week. And the courts are giving us the time. So, I think that we have a real opportunity to show the insurance companies and the defense attorneys how prepared we are to get justice for our clients. And we're going to have the opportunities to do it.
And that's just so important, because I feel like over the past year, our hammer has been taken away, and hearing about your result And it was a slip and fall case?
Yeah, we had a trip and fall case. We had a 45-year-old Haitian gentleman who walked into a Family Dollar. He entered into the aisle, and at the entrance to the aisle, there was a box that Family Dollar employees used as a merchant to stock merchandise on the shelves that was just left there unattended. He tripped on that and he fell and broke his elbow, requiring surgery with 2 screws. So
Wow.
it was the medicine on that. He made a very good recovery. Post surgery, he had a couple of physical therapy visits, a couple of follow-ups, and then really no more future care or no more care up and post surgery up until our trial. And it was really a liability defense. They had 2 witnesses come in and say that there wasn't a box there. Then they also tried to argue that if there was a box there, our client should have seen it and been able to avoid it. So that was the crux of the case.
Well, again, just, being able to see a plaintiff be successful in these times. I know that I'm not alone in that sentiment. I'm sure everybody in PBCJA and FJA and across the country probably heard about this. And, pardon the expression, but it's a real shot in the arm to hear something like that. So I can't thank both of you enough for just taking the time to speak with me and speak with everybody else about your experiences. Jason, I wanted to just ask you, any final thoughts about your experience going through this civil jury trial in Palm Beach? Just about the future of this type of a procedure and anything that maybe you think can be made a little better?
First and foremost, it was just a fantastic opportunity, and I can't, obviously it was Nelson's case, and I jumped on it. He said, I have a trial coming up. You want to take it? And I was like, heck yes. So I won't say what I really said, but I was ready. I was hungry and ready to go, and it was a cool process to see the Zoom hybrid element to it. And obviously social distancing and the masks and stuff like that. I hope that's not here to stay. I hope we're able to make overcome this with the vaccine and the fight against COVID. But the technology element, I think, can really be beneficial, both in the ways that Nelson spoke about before, when people are able to participate and watch the trial, or even just be spectators, but also for strategies and the ability to call witnesses that may not always be accessible, and I mean, the tremendous cost of sometimes bringing witnesses to court is, it can be a big burden, on justice. So the defense witnesses were all by Zoom. The cross of them was a little awkward because of the technology factor and making sure that, they could hear us. Can you hear me? And there was some interpreter issues as well. But I'm just imagining the ability to be able to squeeze a witness in that otherwise would have had to drive from somewhere in Miami or somewhere out of county, and for maybe half hour, 40 minutes of testimony, and it's an entire day. Or even the doctors and how much we have to pay doctors to come and testify, maybe be able to save money and save time if we're able to bring them in by Zoom or things of that nature. So I think there are some elements of it that can be beneficial, and the fact that this trial happened a year after the shutdown, or nearly a year after the shutdown, I think also made a lot of the participants, including us and the jurors, the judge, everybody, a lot more comfortable with the proceedings, because Zoom is like a part of our daily lives now, right? I mean, our kids use it for school, we use it for work, meeting, conferences, whatever it may be, depositions. So everybody was really just kind of familiar. Once that pops up, everybody's like, oh, that's Zoom, and the jurors were looking at the screen and didn't seem to bat an eye about it. So we've definitely been indoctrinated to this new way of technology, and I hope that part we can continue to cultivate.
Nelson, what were your final thoughts on your experience?
So one of the final takeaways that I'd like to share with everyone that we haven't really touched upon is, going into these trials, when it comes to asking for damages, particularly pain and suffering damages. I know that at least I had conversations with attorneys in our office and other colleagues with the Justice Association about, how do you ask for damages in this pandemic time? You have people who aren't working. You have people who are relying on stimulus checks or unemployment. are they going to feel bad for our clients? Are they going to want to award big money damages for our clients? And look, this one experience that Jason and I had isn't necessarily going to be emblematic of what everybody's going to experience. But, when I asked for pain and suffering damage, this was a past medical bills case. There was 37,000 in past medical bills, and there was really no dispute on the past medical bills. And our doctor only recommended $1,000 to $2,000 a year in future medical bills. So it was really a pain and suffering judgment that we got. And that was a concern for Jason and I when we're coming up with those numbers to ask for. When I did my closing, I asked for a range of past pain and suffering of 150 to 300, and for future pain and suffering of 100 to 200. And the jury gave us the number right in the middle. They gave me 225 for that past pain and suffering, and they gave us 150 for the future pain and suffering. And I just wanted to share that to show that in this time, people still can recognize the pain and suffering that you're going through. Whatever a juror is going through, our clients are going through that, but injured. And I think that during this COVID time, that there is a message that's going to resonate with the jury, that's going to allow them to connect with that. And if you're fortunate enough to get the right jurors on there, they're going to realize that, you still deserve money. Just because other people are going through a difficult financial situation, life situation, work situation, doesn't mean that those frustrations need to be taken out on our injured clients. So I think that was an encouraging takeaway that I had.
It certainly is. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for doing this for the benefit of all of us plaintiff trial lawyers. We thank you for going in there and getting it done. And I only hope that the next time I'm seeing you, if they'll have us back, maybe back on the golf course, and maybe we can beat that score from last time.
Definitely. Thank you, Jeff.
So,
thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. For those of you watching, listening, thank you for your attention. I'm Jeff Edelman for Questions for Lawyers. Be well, everyone.